Hello, I'm Billy Moore, and I'm planning my fifth trip to Egypt this October. You see the dates, 28 October to 9 November 2020. So it'll be an exciting trip. I've got the experience of four previous trips. I've refined and honed the itinerary so that it maximizes adventure and exploration and learning. You'll love the trip. I've taken possibly more than 80 people there so far. I have been using Indus Travel Agency in Canada for my trips. My most recent trips were Nepal and India this year, and earlier to Iceland, and also did the Grand Canyon with 13 people this past year. I've got some planning coming up for 2020. The Morocco trip is currently full, and we'll be headed on that shortly. Iceland is scheduled for the 20th of August. And again, this Egypt trip is scheduled for starting on the 28th of October. Likely, the museum will be open at that time, and it's going to attract some repeat participants. I have about 3 or 4 people that want to go for a second time. Then I have Croatia coming up very soon. It's scheduled for 14 May. Looks like I'm not going to have enough people for that, but if you're interested, contact me early so that we can see if we can get you in. You can review my previous tours here. Egypt is certainly my favorite destination. Since I've taken 4 trips there previously, my 5th trip's going to be perfect. I did live in Egypt on the North Shore, close to El Alamein, from 2001 to 2002, 2 years. During that time, I visited and explored Cairo numerous times, visited Giza quite often. Since I've been back from Egypt, I've made 3 additional Nile cruises. I did make one in 2001, so I've been on a total of 4 Nile cruises. One of my primary objectives, it won't be yours, but mine was diving and exploring the Sinai, a beautiful, beautiful location. But Sharm el Sheikh is a resort area for all of Europe. It's like Americans going to Mexico, Cozumel, or wherever it is down Cancun, wherever they go down there. During my time, I had 10 visits to Sharm el Sheikh, and I've had 4 on these trips that I've been on. And all 80 people have gone with me to Egypt, and I don't think any of them have been disappointed with the adventure. You can see the trips here. The 2015 trip was a shorter trip, not a shorter trip, but a different trip in that we did not do the river cruise. We took the time to climb Mount Sinai. But in 2017 and 2018, I elected to do the exciting 4-day Nile River cruise. Here I've listed the highlights of our time in Egypt. We actually start with the Nile River, and we travel from Luxor to Aswan along the Nile. A beautiful, beautiful cruise. The temples along the Nile are right on the shoreline. We pull right up to them and just walk into about 7 temples that we're going to see. We'll have 4 days total on the river, quite relaxing between the various stops that we make. We'll visit many archaeological sites along the river, and we will go to the Valley of the Kings in Luxor. Also, Luxor Temple is there that's quite extensive. I think it's more than 30 acres of temple. You'll not cover it all. It's quite a sight to see. Then we go back to Cairo and then fly to the Sinai, down to Sharm el Sheikh. Sharm el Sheikh will be there for 4 days, and we'll have some events there. Some people will elect to just stay on the beach and relax or stay at the hotel and relax, it's a 5-star hotel where we stay down there on the beach. The water is warm and clear, quite nice for just enjoying the beautiful scenery underwater if you put a mask on, and quite salty, so you float well. Very safe thing to do. I've taught a few people to snorkel, and they really love the experience. We may or may not go to Tyran Island. Probably want to substitute Ras Mohammed National Park in its place. I'll talk to everyone on that before we make that decision. There is a desert dinner and some other attractions, such as an option to go to Petra, Jordan. It's a day-and-a-half trip out of Sharm el-Sheikh. After 4 days in the Sinai, we will go to Cairo. We'll see the Giza pyramids, of course. Hopefully the new Egyptian museum will be open. And I'll take people to the ancient shopping souk in Old Cairo called the Khan el Khalili. We'll be in Cairo for 3 days. And for the explorers among us, we'll be able to travel south of Cairo along the Nile to 3 additional pyramids down there called Saqqara, called Dashur, and the Bent Pyramid. In 2 of those pyramids, they've just recently opened for exploration. They're not crowded at all. On this last trip, I spent 1 hour exploring the passageways in each volcano, in each pyramid, an hour each. It was quite an experience. I think everyone will enjoy this trip. We have, as mentioned on a future slide, we'll have 4 domestic flights in Egypt. We'll have 2 flights across the Atlantic, so you'll see 6 trips via air, and you can see that the price is going to be very reasonable for this whole trip. I'd like to go over the options on this trip. Not all options. Some of these are just standard visits. There will be a few options like going to Abu Simbel if one wants to do that. That's down in Sudan. We'll take an extra flight to get down there. I don't recommend it highly, but for those real adventurers, Petra will be available, and that tour is a day-and-a-half. It's out of Sharm el-Sheikh. Cost about $300 for the trip up there and back. So you can just review the items here, what we do in the Sinai. It can be a busy time or it can be a relaxing time. The hotel that we stay in is on the beach, and it's available for water sports or total relaxation, your choice. I think I may have mentioned that Sharm el-Sheikh is the tourist Mecca for Europe. It's essentially the same as our going down to Cancun from America, but it's much more interesting and not as crowded at all, and certainly less expensive. In Cairo, we've got several options there. I hope to take some adventurers down to the pyramids south of Cairo, where we can go in and explore the passageways. It takes about an hour in each of the 2 pyramids that we explore. We'll also see Saqqara Pyramid down there. Quite interesting. It's possible for those that want to stay there and do more to extend time in Egypt. I also have some people that want to come back a day early, a day or 2 early from Cairo, so I can modify the schedule to accommodate a shorter trip. Just please stay in contact with me if you're interested, and we'll get this thing rolling. Here you see an outline of our schedule. Basically, travel to Cairo 1 day, no overnight in Cairo, straight down to Luxor to get on the boat for a 4-day cruise down the Nile. Then fly back to Cairo and to Sharm el-Sheikh for 4 days there. Once finished there, fly back to Cairo and 3 days in Cairo before returning to the U.S. on 9 November. The flights are out of JFK, and we arrive back in JFK at 15:15, which would allow time to schedule a connector flight to get you back to Norfolk on the same day. Our route of flight from JFK to Cairo is about 5,500 miles in distance, um, about 10 and a half hours each way. And the time change is 7 hours from Eastern Standard Time. Our aircraft are with Star Alliance, so if you're a member, you can get some points for that. Egypt Air on a 777-300 extended range, a very comfortable modern aircraft. The seating chart is shown below. In country, we'll have 4 domestic flights. As I mentioned, once we arrive in Cairo, we'll go straight down to Luxor on the first flight. We'll take the river boat down the up the Nile. It'll be into the current, down to Aswan, 4-day trip. And when we depart in Aswan, we'll fly back to Cairo and have a short layover there to get on down to Sharm el-Sheikh on the same day. 4 days in Sharm el-Sheikh and then back to Cairo for 2 or 3 days. Our flight schedule, just for your interest, it might be refined. The Nile River is beautiful. It's the longest river in the world. It flows north from the heart of Africa, and you won't believe the vegetation, the gardens, the farms along the river. A very thin green strip with desert on each side of it. This is our actual river boat. It turns out to be the newest one on the Nile. We've had it for the previous 2 cruises, and I've requested it for the next cruise. The crew is familiar with us and treat us rather well. On our first evening in Luxor, we'll visit Luxor Temple at night. The lighted columns is quite impressive. You'll enjoy this site. It's part of Karnak, but it's separate from that temple that we'll view on the next day. These are our participants for the 2017 Nile River Cruise. I think one person is missing. We had, I think, 20 people. Below the picture, you'll see one of the endorsements from a traveler. I'll have that on this in the next slide. You can pause here if you need to read it. And for the second Nile River Cruise in 2018, we had almost twice as many people, 36 in all, to enjoy the Nile River. It was a 4-day cruise from Luxor to Aswan. Again, I have comments below. I have numerous comments that I'll address in a separate publication. Some sites along the river. We'll visit Karnak Temple in Luxor. Quite an impressive structure. It'll take quite a while to explore this. It's massive in size. This is one of the temples near the Valley of the Kings. We'll be visiting the Valley of the Kings, which is a burial site with a lot of tombs that have been discovered in the past few hundred years. Edfu Temple is along the river. Our boat will actually stop and we'll travel over to the temple, probably walk over. It's going to be close. All the temples are adjacent to. Here's an example of Kamambo. It's right on the river. We pull right up there and go ashore into that temple. Once we travel down the river and visit 3 or 4 or 5 temples, we end up in Aswan, which is an impressive town, as you can see here. This is more a river scene than a look at the botanical gardens, but I'm standing in the botanical gardens in Aswan. You're going to be surprised at the vegetation that's growing in this on this island in this very dry climate. Of course, the river is the lifeline of Egypt, and we're adjacent to the river here. There's a beautiful sand dune across the river from where we are here, and you'll see scenes like this in numerous places along the Nile. The botanical gardens down there, that's going to be a great visit. It's going to be a surprising visit for us when we go down there. Inside Egypt, when we travel down to the Sinai Peninsula, I just wanted to give you a look at where we will be. You can see down at the very south end of the peninsula is Ras Mohammed, and just north of that is the town of Sharm el-Sheikh. You can see in the central South Sinai there's St. Catherine's. That's where Mount Sinai is, and some people may elect to take an optional tour up there to climb that mountain. It's not too challenging, but it's quite beautiful. The troubled area in the Sinai is located up to the northeast of the peninsula. It's on the border with the Gaza Strip and Israel. It's a place where they're having trouble, if any, now. Also would avoid the western desert on the Libyan border, a long ways away from Cairo. The security that we get from the northern Sinai is separation by mountains, desert, and road access. Checkpoints are all along the roads everywhere in Egypt just to protect tourists. Protection of tourists is a priority. I might mention that Egypt is a very safe location in the Middle East. I might say that only one American has been killed by terrorist activity in the past 30 or 40 years. You can't say that about many places in the world. In Sharm el-Sheikh, we'll be staying at the Savoy Hotel. It's on the beach at the Gulf of Aqaba. We've stayed there 2 times previously. This will be our 3rd time to stay in this hotel. It's ideally located with its own little shopping area within the compound. You won't have to go anyplace else, but we will take a trip down to New Sharm and Old Sharm and explore the tourist activity that's going on down there. You'll love this hotel. This is a view from a room I had on the first visit to this hotel. They're not always this great for view, but they're all nice rooms and large and spacious rooms. We're looking out toward the Gulf of Aqaba here, and the island you see out there is Tyran Island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. The last time I was there, I visited the island for snorkeling. I had to go out there on a boat. This time, I think we'll go south and visit Ras Mohammed National Park. It's quite scenic there, and the water is beautiful there. The water is also very beautiful right off this hotel beach. If you did no other place but that for snorkeling or for relaxing on the beach, you'd have a good, relaxing vacation. Sharm el-Sheikh is a resort for much of Europe, and it's like for them the distance is like our going down to Mexico for a vacation. It's a modern tourist city or town, I should say. It has an Arabic flair, of course. That's what we want. And Ras Mohammed at the southern tip is quite exciting for the people that love to snorkel and see exciting scenery. We'll be traveling down there on an optional tour. Probably cost $35 or $40 each to go down there. But we'll also have a boat tour that will take us down there along the water and even go over to Tyran Island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. Here's some snorkeling views. That's my wife Karen there snorkeling near a reef. For those folks that are not into snorkeling, glass bottom boat tour is fabulous. You'll enjoy that. For those that would like to try snorkeling, it's quite an easy easy sport to participate in. I'm willing to give lessons here for anyone that's interested before we go. And two, we'll get a check out in the pool and in the calm waters of the Gulf of Aqaba or the Red Sea. In Cairo, we'll be staying at this hotel. It's on Tahrir Square. It's just right there by the old museum. You can walk to it. It's near the pyramids, but would take a taxi to get over there, which is part of our deal. We'll be on a bus to go over and visit the pyramids. Also, the Khan el Khalili, the old shopping town, shopping area in Old Cairo, is about 3 miles away. We'll get over there. We'll visit the Great Pyramids, of course, and hopefully have that extra day. We'll see some other pyramids too. So your chance to ride a camel and get a good picture is right here at the pyramids. Here's the old museum. We hope the new museum will be open in 2019 when we get there, but I wouldn't count on it. It might be 2020. It was originally scheduled to be open in 2018, but it didn't make it. Our last day in Cairo is a free day, so I hope to get some people together and go down to visit the three pyramids south of Giza, south of the Great Pyramids. The one you see in the upper left corner is called the Bent Pyramid. The one on the right is Saqqara, and you could go in the Bent Pyramid and explore the passageways inside. The picture right below that with Amanda shows some of the structure in there so that you can get around. And you see me on the right standing outside of one of the entrances to the pyramids. This is quite an exciting trip down to see those pyramids. There's another pyramid called the Red Pyramid that we'll be able to go inside also. So a total of 2 pyramids that we'll be able to crawl in. You'll need to be reasonably physically fit to do it because it's tight and these overheads are very low and some of the passageways. You'll spend an hour in each of the pyramids. You'll get quite fatigued. I almost forgot to mention that the balloon rides are available when we're in Luxor. Early morning, the first morning in Luxor, you can catch one of these balloons and ride across the Nile, probably into the Valley of the Kings, and then back to land near one of the temples south of that area. We've had people, numerous people, do this on the trip. It is an option. It costs, I think, $180, but you can check that out on the itinerary. It's quite an adventure if you've ever wanted to ride in a hot air balloon. You can see the cost of the trip here, but just be advised there's $100 off with registration by the 30th of April. I encourage you to do that because, as noted in red below, there's only 20 spaces allotted. After that, after those spaces are filled, I probably will not be able to expand anymore. It's quite complicated setting up the reservations here because there are 2 flights involved across the Atlantic and 4 domestic flights in the country itself. A lot of planning has to go into it, and plus the riverboats have quite a demand on their cabins. Note, for those needing a roommate, I will coordinate. I've done that successfully a number of times. The weather, as I mentioned, October is the beginning of the tourist season. That means the weather is perfect. No visa requirements that are hard to meet. You just show up at the airport, pay $25. They give you a sticker for your passport, and you're good to go. There's no immunization requirements, and you'll be very pleased with the atmosphere. Gets a little dusty, but generally it'll be blue skies, blue clear skies. Attire is conservative, but you can get by with anything really. I'd say around Cairo you want to be more formal than you are down in Luxor or on our or I should say on our riverboat cruise or at Sharm el Sheikh. But it's pretty much what you would wear casually around here. Please don't hesitate to call me with any questions you might have. My phone number is listed here, and I'll be glad to meet with anyone that needs further information, and I'll be supplying information from now until we go on the trip. Thank you for joining the presentation, and please let me know if you're interested, and I'll start to think of reserving a spot for you.